Oh, hey there. Want to play some topless beach football? So it turns out that it was too cold for topless beach football. But that doesn't mean that we still can't talk about Top Gun Maverick. I don't think it's controversial to say that Top Gun Maverick is probably one of the greatest legacy sequels ever made, and it came out at a time when the term legacy sequel kind of has a negative connotation. It certainly intrigues me how Top Gun Maverick is so beloved when so many other legacy sequels are not, but that's not going to be the main focus of this video. Today I am mainly going to focus on the structure of Top Gun Maverick, how this movie comments on the legacy of the first movie, and how it works to create a new satisfying conclusion. So it's no secret that the structure of this movie is very similar to that of its predecessor, and this is something that it has in common with many other legacy sequels. Both films in the Top Gun duology have a moody opening credits. The first action scene has little to do with the rest of the movie. The bulk of the movie largely alternates between training montages and sports games and romance scenes. The romantic subplot seemingly has little to do with the main story except in the second act low point when our love interest convinces Maverick to get back in the game. There's a final action scene, everyone celebrates, and then Maverick is reunited with his love interest. From start to finish, this movie is pervaded with sameness. The same criticisms that The Force Awakens has for being so similar to its original movie could also apply to Top Gun Maverick. But with Top Gun Maverick, I think the similarities really work to highlight the differences when they come up. Like, this opening sequence is a faithful recreation of the opening sequence from the original movie, complete with the same text, the same music sting under the title card, the same font, and the same music. I had a huge smile on my face the first time I saw this in the theater, and I don't even really like the first movie all that much. However, after watching this movie many times, I must say that there's something kind of off about this sequence. Top Gun Maverick was shot with digital cameras, and the first movie was shot on film. I think the sequel was trying to mimic the super stylized filmic look from the first movie, but it's just not the same. It feels more artificial, I guess. And yeah, I get that this is kind of a negative thing to bring up right off the bat, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. The context of each of these scenes is entirely different. In the first Top Gun, this leads into the first action scene, which takes place around this aircraft carrier, whereas in Top Gun Maverick, it's a little more abstract. Highway to the Danger Zone dramatically fades away, and then we cut to Maverick in a much less exciting location. It's almost like this opening is a memory of the first one, or it's a reflection of where Maverick's head is at the beginning of this movie. So maybe it makes sense that it's merely an imitation of the original. Top Gun Maverick continues on like this, taking familiar things from the first movie and putting them in a new context. The scene directly after the opening, where Maverick eats breakfast and gets ready to leave, is another good example. The music is pensive as we see photos from the first movie. Then the music gets more exciting as Maverick puts on his jacket, his sunglasses, and takes the cover off his motorcycle. At first, this scene doesn't seem too complex. It's merely continuing the legacy sequel obsession with objects and iconography from previous movies. But it does feel a little abrupt, doesn't it? This nostalgia sequence happens at the very beginning of the movie, before Maverick has even said a single line of dialogue. We're not even 5 minutes in, and the movie has already hit us with a big rush of the good stuff. So that begs the question, where will it go next? The next scene I want to talk about is the scene in the bar, where a couple of thematically interesting things happen, but the first one that I want to talk about is Maverick reuniting with his former lover, Penny. So I actually think Penny is a really good love interest for this movie. I think she works much better than if they had brought back Charlie from the first movie. You see, with Charlie, we already know how their relationship would go. They ended the first movie on good terms, and so there's no reason to think that they wouldn't also get together in Top Gun Maverick as well. It would be boring. There would be no conflict. But there's so much conflict between Maverick and Penny.
Are you mad at me?
Oh, Pete. I can never stay mad at you. That's the problem.
It seems like these two have a history of getting together and breaking up many times. Penny initially doesn't want to rekindle their relationship because she suspects that it'll end the same way that it has in the past.
It always ends the same with us, Pete. Let's not start this time.
Also, Penny doesn't seem to believe Maverick when he says that this might be his last job.
I think this is it.
Come on, Pete. You've been saying that as long as I've known you.
This is another instance of that sameness that was present in the first 5 minutes of the movie. This isn't the first time that Maverick is returning to this relationship, nor is it the first time that he's gotten in trouble with the Navy. I want to talk about a particular line that Penny has in this scene.
Pete, trust me. As improbable as it seems right now, somehow you'll be back in a fighter plane with your tail on fire.
This line sounds very similar to a line that Charlie says to Maverick in the first movie.
You're not going to be happy unless you're going Mach 2 with your hair on fire. You know that.
Now, I'm sure you can notice a few differences between these lines. When Charlie says it, she's being completely sincere. This is in the second act low point. Maverick feels guilty about his friend dying, and Charlie is genuinely trying to motivate our hero. But when Penny says it, there's an air of sarcasm to her voice. And also, this is in the very beginning of the movie. Of course Maverick is going to get back in a plane. We're right with Penny in thinking that Maverick is being overly dramatic here. In fact, Maverick comes across as kind of oblivious in this scene. He doesn't seem to be aware of how many times he has dated Penny, or how lucky he is to still be in the Navy, or how quickly time has passed.
That was 3 years ago?
Also, Maverick's happiness isn't part of the discussion here. Charlie says that Maverick won't be happy unless he's flying, but Penny treats it as if it's inevitable.
Somehow you'll be back in a fighter plane with your tail on fire.
No matter how reckless Maverick is, he will eventually get back in the air. It's like he doesn't even have a choice. There's certainly a meta element to what Penny is saying here. It's like she's sitting outside of the movie and commenting on how unrealistic it is. It's like something you would find in a Marvel movie. But this does come back later. In the second act, Maverick says that he's never going to leave Penny again.
But this is the last time I go out your window.
We'll see.
No, I mean it. I'm never gonna leave you again.
He actually makes an effort to change his ways and not repeat the past. And of course, the ending of the movie is another progression of this, but we'll talk about the ending in a moment. So yeah, while the scene in the bar is cheeky and it's making fun of how invincible our protagonist is, it's also character development. Now, the second thing I want to talk about in this scene is the flashback. There is a direct flashback to the first movie in this scene, and it occurs when Rooster is playing the piano. We see the scene from the first movie when Goose is playing that same song, and we also get Goose's death scene. The implication of this flashback is clear. Maverick is worried that history is repeating itself. He's worried that Rooster will die just like his dad. This is a problem, because as Penny just pointed out, history has been repeating itself all the time around Maverick. In this moment, I think Maverick has a level of awareness that is rare for a character in a Legacy sequel. Anyway, the next thing I want to talk about is Top Gun Maverick's version of the love interest gives Maverick motivation scene. What Penny tells Maverick in this scene is very different from what Charlie told him in the first movie's equivalent scene. First, let's look at what Charlie says.
Listen, I've seen all the evidence, and it's not your responsibility.
She basically tells Maverick that Goose's death is not his fault, and that he needs to get back in the air.
You're one of the best pilots in the Navy. What you do up there, it's dangerous.
Honestly, this is a very 1980s mindset. Don't worry about your friend dying, King. It wasn't your responsibility. Now get back out there and kill us some commies. But what Penny tells Maverick is very different.
Those are your pilots. If anything happens to them, you will never forgive yourself.
She basically tells Maverick that it is his responsibility to look after these pilots, and that's why he needs to get back in the air. This whole conversation is basically the central theme of Top Gun Maverick, isn't it? Maverick is no longer a pilot just because he's ridiculously good at it. Now he's doing it to protect other people. He has to teach these young pilots to be like him, and he has to take care of Rooster. We get a taste of Maverick acting this way early on in the flight test scene.
You know what happens to you if you go through with this.
I know what happens to everyone else if I don't.
Maverick flies the plane and risks his career so everyone else can keep their jobs. In the climax of this movie, Rooster adopts Maverick's philosophy. Maverick saves Rooster's life, and then Rooster saves Maverick's life. So now I guess Maverick can relax a little bit. And to me, this is what the hold my hand sequence is all about. I think it's really cool that Maverick literally slows down at the end of this movie. When the movie starts, he's the fastest man alive. But at the end, he's going on a leisurely plane ride in a P-51 Mustang with Penny. They literally ride off into the sunset. Disney should get rid of Soren and make a ride out of this. I'm serious. But why don't we compare this ending to the ending of the original Top Gun? Why don't we take a little peek and see if there's anything different about it? This ending is similar in that they're flying into the sunset, but they're fighter jets. This is presumably Maverick and Iceman because Iceman said that Maverick could fly with him at any time, but my point is they're still using public property. Maverick at the end of Top Gun Maverick is finally in the private sector. Anyway, I think it's really admirable that this movie was able to mirror the structure of the first movie and deliver on that nostalgia while also taking its characters to challenging new places. This movie uses legacy to its advantage. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And to those of you watching in the Southern Hemisphere, enjoy your topless beach football.